Thank you very much for joining us. This is Dicejunkies. I'm joined with Zeno today, and on Skype we have. Oh, there's my son Tobin. Thank you very much for photobombing. I appreciate that, son. Um, we have Matthew. Is it Kabwe?
Kabwe, yeah.
Kabwe. I missed one finally. Matthew Kabwe with us. Just to get everybody up to speed, we're Dice Junkies. We're a geek culture talk show. We do a lot of gaming content, and lately we've been doing a lot of Outriders discussion on our show. And if you go to our YouTube channel, there's a lot of gameplay from Outriders. And with us joined, we have with us the voice of Abraham Zahedi, Matthew Kabwe. We'll get into Outriders a little bit later, but there's some other things we want to talk to first. But Matthew, thank you very much for joining us today. We greatly appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is great.
Oh, absolutely. I'm glad to have you on board because you have a very impressive resume. You've done some voiceover, but a lot of your work is like in theater. Um, and also you've had some television roles. I found a couple of interesting things looking through your resume where you played medical roles, both as a doctor, as a nurse, and me being an X-ray tech. I was fascinated. You've also played an X-ray technician. So I was just curious, just for my own personal information. Do you have any kind of medical background or family history of working in medicine at all, or is that just something you've picked up along your way?
That is negative on both fronts. I've had absolutely no not no med. I've done like CPR classes, but yeah,
Right.
I'm hardly a paramedic. But no, it's just that every actor has a completely different career from every other actor. So it's just different things pop up, and it just so happens that people have asked me to play doctors and nurses. And actually, I just finished shooting something, and my character's name was Dr. Francis. So it seems to be a recurring thing, but it's not something that I'm seeking, and it's the fates that are doing it, not me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you had Dr. Francis, you and Dr. Abraham Zahedi in Outriders.
Yeah.
So you've had a lot of doctors in your background, which is cool. Um, Before we get into Outriders, I was looking through some of your demo reels, and I can't quite find it, but Deadspell was the clip that I saw, and I'm gonna put a picture up here for the audience to be able to see.
Nice.
Uh, I laughed and laughed and laughed.
Good,
Only
good.
had a couple of minutes of it, but your character appeared to hate his wife and wanted her to choke on bees. Can you give us a little more information about Deadspell? Because I really want to know more about this show.
Well, that was a super, super fun project. There's this director named Jack Hackle from Montreal. He's a wonderful director. He's been working for a few decades now. And he directed a lot of commercials, but he got into directing because he wanted to do narratives. So he called out, like a couple decades of favors from a bunch of people. He was like, I want to go and I want to shoot this short film. And so he put the team together, and then I just auditioned, and he liked what I did, and I got to work with him, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful time and a wonderful relationship. But yeah, so it was just about this guy named Hardin Reddy, who kind of leads a miserable existence and imagines himself as all of these different uh, things that he's not, and hates the fact that he's not that. And the sort of focus of his rage is his wife, as they're just both playing not Scrabble because of copyright. But it was super fun. We shot that over 3 days in this little shack in Oka, Quebec, and I had a blast doing it. I got to do all kinds of fun little things like getting sprayed with blood, and it was a blast. And as a longtime Guar fan, being sprayed with blood is like super fun.
Oh, you like Gwar, do you?
Oh yeah, I saw them
Oh,
live twice.
Did you really? We had
Yeah.
them locally a while back, and I tried to get my wife to go, and she's like, "Well, what kind of music do they sing?" I'm like, "You go for the show, and because music, if you actually know the name of the band Gwar, it's God, what an awful racket is what it sounds, is what the name means,
Yeah.
and you don't go for the actual music, you go for the show." And
Oh, it's a fantastic show.
she's
And
like,
it's just it's funny that your name is Blood Axe, because the first time I saw them was in Montreal. And after the show, me and my buddy went to go meet somebody else at this other club that Dred Zeppelin was playing. If you remember those guys, it was like Tord Elvis and like all those that crew. So we went to go see them, and we got there, and we were like just covered head to toe in blood, right? Because we just saw Quar, and the bouncer just looked at us, and he was like, "Did you guys just get into an axe fight?"
That's funny. Yeah, I've never seen them, but I want to go. But my wife likes Slipknot and says they put on a pretty good show, so I think she would actually enjoy it if we actually went. Um, but yeah, that's funny. I would never would peg you for a Gore fan.
Oh yeah, love them, love them.
All right, so yeah, I know the big question a lot of our fans are wanting to have answered, and we'll go ahead and get into the Outriders content now. You played Dr. Abraham Zahedi, which I must admit, out of all the NPCs, I have spent more time with your character than anybody else in the game.
Yeah,
Um,
how
uh,
cool is that?
yeah, I'm always going to you to change mods or do all kinds of or upgrade gear. So you are the man in the game. Um,
Yeah.
so what was your experience as an actor when you actually took on this role as Abraham Zahedi?
Oh, it was a kid in a candy shop. I mean, I mean, like a lot of people have been playing video games forever. You know, um, and the way that I got the job was I was shooting on Assassin's Creed Origins,
Hmm.
and I met Abu Bakr Salim, who is the lead in Origins, and he's the lead in Raised by Wolves. Super awesome guy, and he was telling me the exact same story of he's been a long time gamer, and then they cast him as the lead in this Assassin's Creed game, and he was over the moon. I was like, wouldn't that be amazing? And then uh, I met with the director of that, who was the director of the cutscenes in Outriders, and he was like, hey, yeah, let's work on this. You get to be this giant character in this game, and I was like, yes, bring it. Like, this is fantastic. I mean, to play video games for so long and then to just be this presence in this game all the way through is just so much fun. It's such a fun game too, so it's awesome.
Oh, it is. We've been playing it since the demo came out. Actually, I think our third co-host, who unfortunately couldn't make it today, he's taking his mother out for Mother's Day right now, a day early. Has
Happy
probably
Mother's Day, all mothers in the world.
Oh, absolutely. Happy Mother's Day to my wife and my mom as well. And speaking of Mother's Day show, that'll be tomorrow, which well this will probably air on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm hoping I can make the show tomorrow. We may have to talk about that off air, Zeno. But when it comes to Outriders, I've been playing the Trickster, but
Mhm.
Q, who is our third co-host, he's been played all the classes and kind of fell in love with the Technomancer. Although he's been playing the Pyro more lately. He's probably logged over 300 hours in the game. In all
Nice.
honesty, he has played the bejesus out of Outriders. I've been playing the Trickster, but and Xenos he's picked up the Trickster recently. You started off with Devastator, right?
Yeah, yeah. Devastator was what was my main go to. They were a bit slow for solo play, and I never can line my schedule up with Blood Axe and Q. So I finally switched over to the Trickster to try to do a better solo. But I did enjoy my Devastator. I actually saw on your Facebook where you had mentioned leveling up your Devastator, Matt, and yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
oh
Well,
man, I maybe I should stick with my Devastator. He he seemed to be having so
Well,
much
Devastator
fun.
was the first class because it's like the game came out and it's like, hey, do I want to play the game that I'm in? It's like, hell yeah, I want to. So I grabbed a Devastator, the first one. So I finished the game with so I have a level 30 tier 15 or world tier 15 Devastator. So that was my
Nice.
first one. He was a seismic shifter, so that was fun. I just throw earthquakes everywhere. Super fun. And then I started playing with my two best friends co-op. So I made another Devastator for that. So we've just been going through like that. And then on my own, I went back and I finished the game with a Technomancer who was all about turrets, just throwing them
Mhm.
out like hay. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And now I'm working on a pyro who is just a gross assault rifle build. Like she's it's my first female character in the game, and she is just melting people with her assault rifle. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think Pyro is the one I haven't really played much. Like I played the Trickster, I played the Technomancer. I think Quinn is Q is the only one out of our bunch that actually played the Pyro.
Yeah.
But he seems to be enjoying it. I think last time I checked in on him, he was doing Expedition 13 or something with his Pyro. So
I think we got him to 14, but yeah, he was playing the pyro, and our tactics were he was basically mobbing, and my trickster was bossing. So Alpha's captains, I was responsible for them. He was keeping everything off of me, and that was kind of what we're doing. But we need to get, I
This
guess.
pyro build seems to be like just excellent at smoking bosses. Like
Really?
I think. Oh yeah. Well, I'm still playing through the campaign, but I don't know, somewhere around level 20, I fought like 2 ironclads popped up, and I smoked both of them inside one magazine. I was like,
Oh wow.
what is happening?
so before this, were you a big gamer? Did you play a lot of games prior?
I'm not a huge gamer anymore. I mean, like when I was a kid, I mean, games were, I don't want to date myself, but when I was a kid, Super Mario came out. So, um,
Me too.
yeah, so I used to play tons when I was a kid, and there's only a couple games that I sort of kept up playing through the years, but as soon as this came out, I was all over it.
Oh yeah, we when the demo came out, we all downloaded it and played it, and we talked about it for weeks. Actually, it's probably been an ongoing topic for about 2 months now. We usually have a little segment about Outriders because we just played so much
Yeah.
of it lately.
Yeah, you
I do
can't
have a
date
question.
yourself too bad, by the way. I think all of us here are in our 40s, so
Some further along in the 40s than others, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah.
uh,
But I am kind of curious now, and this is a common question I like to ask because I always find the answers interesting. So, when it comes to Zahedi, his personality, how much of it is scripted versus how much did you have a creative license to do your own thing with?
well, Josh Rubin, who's the head writer, and Felix Rock, who is the director, were both really great guys to work with. They're both open to a lot of things, and Josh wrote an amazing script. I mean, the story is like super fun. And so they presented me with this character, and we just all sat down. We workshop things before we got into shooting the game. Just talked about all the characters and how they function, how they relate with each other, and what they're all about, and that kind of thing. So I got to work with the both of them before we started shooting on who Zahedi would be. And they, let me put in my input. Like there's one thing in particular that was in the original script, and we got there. I was like, no, 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 this can't happen like this. This is not at all Zahedi. And they were like, you are absolutely right. And so we changed it. And so
Oh,
it's
nice.
something that happens at the end of the game. So I don't want to spoil what it is. I mean, it's not a giant thing. It's not like, oh, I think Zahedi should save the world. It wasn't like giant like that, but it was just a little personality thing that they let me put in. That was super fun.
Yeah, it's interesting when I hear stories like that because we'll have an actor or actress on and they'll say, "Well, no, the character that I've actually taken a lot of invested interest in wouldn't do this," or "I've done this in the past with this character. Wouldn't it be cool if we kind of adjust it to that?" And sometimes studios agree, sometimes they don't. I know when it came to Gears, there was a lot of no, you have to follow the script versus when we spoke to Mr. Linty in Borderlands, they go, "Oh yeah, what's your idea?" And they were a lot more acceptable with it. So I
Yeah.
think it also depends on the franchise because this is the
Hmm.
first Outriders game, so we don't really have a lot of canon or a
Yeah.
lot of established mythology regarding the game. So you have probably some more flexibility, but if you get to Outriders 3, 4, or 5, no, this is how the story goes, and so you do
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
lot more streamlined stuff. But as a you're a geek, just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
No offense, but
Card carrying geek.
yeah, absolutely. Outriders, in my head canon, is almost kind of like the movie what Prometheus would have gone through had they decided to go ahead and colonize that planet. It's
Okay.
it's really interesting how and I'm a huge Alien fan. I've seen all 6 films. Yeah, there's 6 films now.
Can I just say this? Because it came up in conversation with my friends today. One of my pet peeves is when people call the creature in Alien the xenomorph. That drives me nuts because
Why is
it's
that?
not a xenomorph. So it's a xenomorph in the sense that xenomorph means xeno alien morph form, so alien life form. So it is a xenomorph in the sense that you and I are both mammals, right? So that's true. But in Aliens, in the briefing scene, Lieutenant Gorman is telling everybody, okay, this is the mission. And they're like, what are we doing? And he says, I don't know, but a xenomorph may be involved. He wasn't naming the creature because they'd never seen the creature before. He was just saying an alien life form may be involved. We don't even know that much. So that's where the term xenomorph came into the Alien franchise, and people
Right.
just got lazy and started calling it the xenomorph. And that's just my pet peeve. So, all
Yeah,
right. I got off my chest. The world knows now, and
Yeah,
good times.
yeah. There's your card. You're just shining that thing.
Yeah, and as an Aliens nut, I've probably seen them film Aliens over 500 times. I've seen it more than anything else. Even as a Star Wars nut that I am, I've seen Aliens more than any other film. And I've never thought about it that way. It's actually you're right. He says a xenomorph may be involved, and
Yeah.
you know what's a xenomorph, and that's when Ripley gets to do her spiel.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really cool. I never thought about it that way. So I mean,
I saw Aliens the year it came out at a drive-in.
I saw it in the theater and about freaked out, especially whenever the first chest burster came out down in the cooling tunnels. Oh yeah, man, it's and then when the director's cut came out, like they can add more content. Oh my gosh!
Oh,
And
the
so,
director's cut is superb. If anybody hasn't seen the director's cut of Aliens, do yourself a favor. It's fantastic.
yeah, James Cameron said it was like 2 hours of bad road, but we're going to take you on the original journey. And the whole Sentry sequence was absolute. I mean, that made my mouth drop, hit the ground.
Oh, it's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Maybe we got him demoralized.
I'm going to watch it right now after this interview, actually. No,
Hudson is one of the greatest characters in science fiction history. Like, he is one of the most quotable characters, and the sci-fi pedigree of Bill Paxton, right? Like, he was in Near Dark, he was in Aliens, he was in Terminator,
Predator,
he was in Twister,
Predator 2.
Predator 2, yeah, one of the detectives in Predator 2. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, he when he died, I actually cried a little bit. That was really unexpected. My dream was to meet him and Michael Biehn and get them both to sign a picture of them side by side that I had bought. And Michael Biehn had come to Pensacon, but unfortunately Bill Paxton already passed. But funny story, talking about Bill Paxton quotes. So we went to Six Flags in Texas, and there was this ride, I think called Dungeon Drop or something like that, where they take you all the way up and use magnets to repel the magnetism and shoot you down. And when we get to the top, my brother looks at me and goes, "We're on the express elevator to hell. Go down."
We got knives, sharp sticks.
Oh my gosh. Here we get supersonic ball breakers, the Knights, new shark sticks. Oh yeah, with that little 60-second cut scene just made that drop so much better.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
That's
yeah, you are
Outriders, right? Because it's just like go to the alien planet, and oh yeah, you got magical powers too. Like, oh, yes, please.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, your game does kind of fit into the whole franchise of Aliens, which is the anomaly is still. I love the fact that I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but I love the fact that your game doesn't over-explain everything. There's a lot of interpretation. And that's one of the things that I, as a fan, appreciate is don't explain to me everything. Give us a chance, an opportunity to discuss, hypothesize, theorize, and be able to form our own things.
Well, I think it's the mark of great sci-fi, right? Because like if you like when George Lucas made the original Star Wars movies, that they made a deliberate choice to say we're not going to explain how everything works. Like it will just be there are Jawas. That's all you need to know, right? and it totally created this whole this scape in this story where it's just like, yeah, I'm here, that's it. And it drives me nuts when I watch sci-fi and they're like, they have to name everything, give it a super cool name, like, and they just spend 9 hours explaining to you how the trigger on a gun works. And it's like, I don't need to know any of this. Like, let me decide what's cool.
Right.
I will tell you what's cool. Just show me what's going on. So, and there's a lot that I find cool in Outriders, so that works out pretty well.
Yeah, I think it helps a lot with immersion too. Like as you're playing the game, you can sort of immerse yourself more when you can sort of fill in the blanks with your own personality and your own ideas. But
yeah, you have to make it yours,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that because I've often had many discussion, not really argument, but just more of a debate that Star Wars is not sci-fi. It's actually sci-fantasy. You're
Yeah.
right. Sci-fi, you must explain, physically how all this works, biomechanics, all that kind of thing. But sci-fantasy, it's fantastical. You don't have to have an explanation for it. And I think Hugh said it best. It's basically wizards with in space. It's what Star Wars is.
All right, I just think you're making up words now. I'm not.
Well, Outriders falls into that category, right? Because I mean, there's a very, very strict sci-fi element to it. Of like, okay, well, there's this ship, and we're going to go to this planet, and there's cryo sleep. It's going to take this amount of time because of the speed of light, and that. And now I can lift the truck.
Yeah, I really like the story of and especially the mystery as you progress through the campaign. And not going to spoil it for anyone that hasn't played the game yet, but I like how as you go along you find these artifacts and like these aren't supposed to be here. What are these doing here? And then you find out later on what's going on. But yeah, it's the story was original, I thought, which is refreshing and rare nowadays. A lot of times we see, things getting rebooted or or they're taking or they're adding on to the existing franchise. But this is fresh and new. And I think that's one of the things that has captivated us as gamers is that the story is not just a rehash of something that we played 20 years ago.
Well, and I know.
Well, the guys from People Can Fly are a really great gang of people. Like they a lot of not they, but a lot of them used to work for Epic Games, and a lot of them had a hand in some of the Gears of War franchise. So they all came from a place of understanding how to create like really interesting big games like this, and then got their own sandbox to do it in. So I think they really took care. They knew where the pitfalls were to begin with, on top of being really creative, amazing guys, So I really think they managed to put something together, which is great because they are a young company. I mean, Square Enix is involved, so that's why everybody knows what's going on with Outriders. But the core production comes from People Can Fly, and it's a real, it's like a real boutique of passionate people. And I'm glad that they're experiencing some success with this because I want to see more from them for sure.
Yeah, is going back to the Gears of War. They did the Judgment game, which was kind of a prequel to the first Gears of War, and it focused on my favorite character in the Gears franchise, Baird. I play Baird as his skin for everything when it comes to being a tech. And the one thing that People Can Fly did that I thought was the most innovative in progressing the game forward was assigning classes in Horde. Because before then, you didn't have a class. You just played Horde with guns and whatever you can find and set up shop, whatever. But now you can actually build a base. You can build defenses. And that was new. We had never done that before. Now in Gears 5.
I played a lot of Horde on Gears 4. And the class system was huge.
Well, yeah, they the coalition advanced the abilities of the classes in 4 and then in 5. But before then, in Gears 2, there were no classes. And Gears 3 is, again, you're just running around trying to, survive. But when Judgment came out, we can actually build defenses now, or we can use other special abilities. And you just grew up on that. But it was very innovative, very creative at the time. And it's just expanded since then.
It's so much fun, right? Like like for me, one of the hallmarks of a really great game is replayability. Like
Hmm.
when I mentioned before, there's only a couple games that I've sort of kept up with over the years. One of them is Civilization, and that's a game where it's just you can just play it over and over and over and over and over,
Oh
and
yeah.
it's a different game every time. And one of the things that's great about Outriders is I so far I haven't finished with my second Devastator, but the first time I played through solo as a seismic shifter. The second time I'm playing through co-op as a warden, and the way to play the game is completely different. Same level, same this, but how you think about playing is completely different. And then you play a Technomancer and it's totally different. And then you play a Trickster and a Pyro and it's totally different. And are you
Yeah.
doing it solo? Are you doing a co-op with friends? Are you doing a co-op with random strangers? Like it's a really it gives you a lot of chance to experience the same game in very different ways, and it's just super fun.
Yeah, you sound like my buddy Zen, who we played Gears together a lot, and when I started playing Outriders, he was asking me about it, and he didn't have Game Pass. He actually paid to purchase the game,
Mhm.
and he's trying different builds. And I keep trying to explain to him that when you're playing solo, it's a completely different build than you play co-op. And there's different class trees to kind of further explain to the audience what Matt's talking about. Is each class has three trees, and so for example, you may have a firepower build on one tree and an anomaly build on the other, which focuses more on skills as opposed to just raw gun damage. But yeah, your loadout for co-op, especially in expedition difficulties, will probably change compared to campaign solo play or even co-op
Absolutely.
campaign play. Um,
Like when I finished it with my first Devastator with a seismic shifter, there was so much Leroy Jenkinsing. It's just run screaming in, throw some earthquakes, and hope for the best kind of thing. And then when I played with my Technomancer, I was a lot of like, okay, stop. Where is everybody? Where can I throw a turret so I can screw up their day? Like it totally made me think completely differently, and it's a really palpably different quality to the game, you know?
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah, because Q will wait until like a broodmother comes out, and then he goes, "All right, tell me when you teleport," and I teleport, and he drops his blight turret, which gives me 30% damage for 10 seconds. So yeah, you have to coordinate, your abilities that kind of give bonuses or debuffs to your team across the board. As
mhm,
opposed to solo play, you can do whatever you want to with your character because you know how it's going to behave.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's refreshing to hear someone else have a similar mindset when it comes to co-op gameplay
Yeah, see, I'd
because
started my Devastator as a warden build because I thought my friends would play with me. Um,
we will.
but well, a lot of scheduling issues. But I ended up switching over my Devastator to a uh, melee punching build, and that was just amazing. I will say, just going and punching bosses in the face, and
Yeah.
of course throwing in your seismic abilities in there with it. But I will say the combinations could. I'm waiting to see what all combinations people come up with because I know it's going to constantly change at least for the first few
Mm,
months of the game as people find different combinations that work. But the
yeah.
the the, the punching Devastator has definitely been one of my favorite combinations to do, and it was just fun to go and punch people in the face.
Well, I think one of the things that really works is like if you go online, you'll see like best Devastator build, best
Mhm.
this build, best that build, and each one is saying you absolutely have to have these three skills, and all of them are saying completely different skills.
Yeah,
Because I
yeah.
think the way that they set the game up is you never quite get everything you want. Like it's impossible to have all the mods that you want and to have all the skills that you want and to have all of the you're like there's always something where you really have to be really picky and choosy when you're building your character. And so it just means there's, you know, countless different kinds of characters, which means there's countless different kinds of gameplay, and it's super cool.
Yeah, yeah. I always tell people never listen to the best build. I was like, you can use it as a template, as an idea, but then go and add your own twist to it. Add what works for you, because I mean your play style may not work with the best build because everybody plays different too. So
Yeah.
And that's sort of the fun of having those options out there. Is you got to tweak it to how you play. But
Yeah, it's good to get ideas from the people's like, okay, how does this work synergistically with your other skills? Okay, well, this works better for me, but like for example, Fortress, it's a tier 3 ability on the one of the shotguns, and I was talking to Q about it, and it's like, well, it adds 40 up to 43% of armor to your damage, plus it gives me an extra tier of armor along with shields and health, so it gives me some more survivability. And I was able to stay up longer using that ability. And then he goes, "Well, I'm gonna try that too for my uh, not Devastator. He was playing the Technomancer."
Mm.
And so he started adopting it. So yeah, you're right. Just talking to others or looking at videos online, you may get some ideas for different builds, and that may help you with your gameplay.
so change, I guess, a little bit of where we're at. I do have a question that's on my mind now. It's been sitting here
All
for a
right.
bit. So you had mentioned, actually, I guess early before we started recording, you had mentioned about recently getting your COVID shot and everything.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious. You have done I guess 2 games. You've done Assassin's Creed, and then you did Outriders. Now,
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed was before the whole COVID thing,
Yeah.
and Outriders
Yeah.
is right here, dab in the middle of it. Was the experience changed by that?
Well, acting these days is it's quite an adventure because we're one of the only professions in the world where when we go to work, we have to take our masks off
Mm.
and speak to each other. So we have to do everything that they say don't do. So I've been working like that for the last few months, and so to get my vaccination, which I just got yesterday, but to be vaccinated now is super 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 exciting. But there's no way, I don't think, that people would have survived this pandemic and the lockdown if people hadn't been there to be creating new video games and new TV shows and new stuff to stream, because that's pretty much what's been saving everybody,
Oh yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
been it's an adventure on set. I just finished shooting a feature film, and uh, the, I woke up in the morning of the last day of my shoot, and I felt very sick. Like I had a lot of pain, and it was surprising. So I was like, I went online, and they're like, "Oh yeah, absolutely, that is a COVID symptom." And I was like, "Well, that's no good." So I started consulting with professionals, and the production was just like, "Well, we're not going to take any chances, because it's going to take at least a day or two to get an answer off a COVID test. So we're just going to cancel the day." Um, because if COVID creeps onto a set,
Mm-hmm.
the production just shuts down.
Yeah.
Like that's all there is to it. So anyway, all that's to say that, like, when you're on set these days, everybody is super super precautious. There's very very strict rules about where you can be and who you can talk to and how you can talk to them and when you take your mask off and where you put your mask once it's off, and in fact there's a new job on set, at least where I'm shooting, called COVID officer, where their only job on set is to make sure that the protocols are being followed. That's it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive. So, can you give us any information about the project you're working on, or are you kind of hush hush on any of those?
No, well, I just finished a feature film. The title, the working title, at least, I don't know if it'll be the release title, but the working title is VXC, and it's a Quebecois production, so it was written and financed and produced here I'm in Quebec in Canada, so it was produced here, and it's a lot of the people on the film are from the team. They did a zombie movie about 4 years ago that's on Netflix. In English, it's called The Ravenous, and the original title is called Les Affamés. So it's a fun little zombie movie that you can find on Netflix. So that team, they've made a new film, uh, and yeah, we just finished shooting that like a week and a half ago. So that's
Cool.
that's the one I'm playing, Dr. Francis.
I know the doctor. I can't let you go without getting into one of my passionate rabbit holes, and that's Star Wars.
Oh yeah.
And as we were talking about before we started recording about both of us being Star Wars nuts, I think you actually may challenge me when it comes to Star Wars knowledge. But you've
Possibly,
actually done.
possibly. You never want to step in it when you say that, but it's possible.
Well, I was surprised when I was speaking with Sarah Moye a while back, and I have a tattoo on my arm. You probably can't see it. Well, maybe you can,
Oh,
but
it's rebel, the alliance sign. Yeah,
it's Han Solo's
fancy
gun,
have it. Oh
and
yeah. Oh dope.
it has my wife's name up here. Sorry, up here, and then it says her name, and then I know, and she has Leia's gun that says my name and I love you.
Oh, that's awesome.
And Sarah's like, "Is that DL-44?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, you knew the name of Han Solo or the model of Han Solo's gun. That is awesome." And then we went down this huge rabbit hole. We started talking about her memorabilia and her autographs and stuff. It was absolutely wild. But the reason I bring it up is you've actually played in some Star Wars roles in theater. Um,
Yeah.
and the two that I found, and maybe more, but there was Star Wars Survivor, and there was the Killing of Jar Jar. You played Lando Calrissian in Star Wars Survivor,
Yeah.
and I found a couple of credits for the Killing of Jar Jar of a geek, various roles, but you also got to play the ultimate badass in Darth Vader, the Lord of the Sith.
Yeah.
What was it like being the voice of Darth Vader in the Killing of Jar Jar?
Well, Killing Jar Jar was a super fun show because when episode 1 came out, I full on went and camped out on the street for tickets, and a couple of friends of mine were there too, and they wrote this play about the experience of camping out for tickets for episode 1. So that's what the play was about. So I got to play. So they wrote a character called Geek that was based off me, and then later on came back and asked me if I wanted to do the show. So I got to play myself in a show about standing in line for Star Wars tickets, which I did, which was super awesome. So it's like this awesome meta experience. And then in the show, there was this dream sequence where one of the guys speaks to Darth Vader. So they were like, okay, well, because James Earl Jones is the GOAT, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
you, no one, like, everybody's like, oh, I do a great Darth Vader impression. It's like, no, you don't.
you know.
Like, you just don't. Just stop, right? Because it's impossible. So, but they were like, well, we need a Darth Vader voice. So what we actually did was I was off stage, and we had this great big long cardboard tube, like something you'd wrap a carpet in, so I had it like a big bull roarer, and I just would like speak down or the didgeridoo rather, I just speak down the length of it, and I would give it a bit of the echo, kind of thing, and just drop my voice as best as I could, and try to be as cool as James Earl Jones, which is possible, but still fun to try.
That
But
is
yeah,
cool.
that was super fun. Yeah.
Oh, I bet it was. Yeah, because there was that. And you played you played the probably the biggest badass in Star Wars. But you also got to play the smoothest character out of any character in Star Wars, Lando Calrissian. I
Oh,
had a long conversation about this with my wife yesterday about because Billy D. Williams is coming to one of the conventions here in Mississippi in June. And my one of my goals is to try to get a couple minutes to interview with Billy D. And I was like, well, Matt, he did Lando, so I'll get my Lando interview on Saturday, one way or the other.
nice, nice. Oh yeah, both Billy D himself and Lando. I mean, they're just cooler than the other side of the pillow.
Oh
Like,
yeah,
they're spectacular.
nice Stuart Scott reference there.
Yeah, it was a funny summer because we actually did. It was a fringe festival show, so we did 7 different fringe festivals that summer. So we toured clear across Canada, and I had this. I can grow a beard, but I can't grow a cool mustache to save my life. Like, the only man that can grow an amazing mustache is Tom Selleck, and everybody else comes
Oh
second.
wow.
Um,
Fair enough.
so I had this terrible, terrible mustache that did me absolutely no favors, and I sort of had my hair relaxed to try and look a little more like Lando. So from an ego standpoint, it was a pretty difficult summer. When I put on the cape and everything, I looked very Lando. When I was walking around, I looked like a hot mess. Is what I looked like.
Oh, that's funny. Um, what was your favorite project as an actor to work on, whether it be theater, film, or whatever?
Well, when it comes to theater, I'm pretty partial to Shakespeare.
Hmm.
That's like it poses a lot of really fun challenges as an actor, but like in terms of performance, but also just in terms of craft. Like, how do you take text that's 400 years old and say it in a way that it makes sense to people? Um,
Right.
I got to play Sir Toby Belch a few years ago, and Amanda was the director. We decided that like he's a drinker in the story, but we decided that he was just hammered all the time. So I had to do Shakespearean text while slurring my speech outdoors and make it clear for everybody. So
Wow.
that's about as awesome as an acting challenge as you can get.
Oh
But
yeah.
when it comes to funnest role ever, Outriders is a prime contender for that. Like it was a great time shooting this game. Like I so I'm a Canadian actor. I don't live or work out of LA. So to be able to do a role this involved, you know, the opportunities don't always come for us up here. So to be able to do that in the first place is pretty amazing. But then again, to do it on this giant sci-fi story was, as a card carrying geek, it's about a dream come true, you know.
Oh yeah.
And the scenes were fun and the people were fun, and it's a very different beast when you're, if you're like a day player, so you show up on you show up on some film set and you're security guard number 3, and they're kind of looking at you like, don't be my problem, like just don't be the guy that makes me have to do 50 takes of this, please. Like there's that experience, which is great because it pays the rent, and it's acting and it's fun. But then there's this experience where you're there day in and day out and you get to build the character, and you know those kinds of experiences are really really fun, and this one in particular was one of the most fun for sure.
Oh, I'll bet. Yeah, because you're other than the player character. I think yours is probably the central character in the game, at least the
Yeah.
central NPC,
Yeah.
from start to finish.
Well, if you want to get your gun upgraded, he is.
I had a total senior moment. I was playing the game, uh, I don't know, like a week back or something like that, and not a cutscene triggered, but like an in-game, voiceover triggered, and I heard my voice, and I totally had this moment of like, why am I hearing my voice?
You know that happened last time. We were playing. We do tabletop games on Fridays, and for some reason, while we were on Skype, my YouTube started playing, and it was one of our Sunday shows. I'm like, why am I hearing my voice and Mark's voice, and I don't see his lips moving? I'm like, oh, it's my YouTube. I got to turn it off. So yeah, no, it's a weird out of body experience. I'm like, what's going
Yeah,
on? It's very disorienting.
a little bit,
Looking
but
at some of your newest material, it looks like Fatherhood and the Moodies are two of your newest projects.
yeah.
What can you tell us about those?
Well, they're fun little projects to do. I mean, they're more of like a day player kind of thing. I'm not the star of either. But Fatherhood was so when we shot Fatherhood, um, I got to hang out with Kevin Hart all day, and he's obviously a hilarious guy. But Alfre Woodard is in the movie, and she was there that day, and you know, she's Lily in Star Trek First Contact, and a million other things, and I was super excited to meet her, but I didn't get to hang, like she was on the other end of the set from me, so I didn't get to hang out with her all day. So we shot a scene. We're in the scene together, and at the end, I was like, I cannot leave without saying how happy I am to meet you. So I walked up to Audrey Woodard, and in my head, I was like, oh, I'm such a fan. I'm so happy to meet you. I just want to say it was a real pleasure to meet you, and it's just wonderful. That's how it sounded in my head. But when I replayed afterwards, it sounded more like Chris from Family Guy when he gets like obsessed. Like I was just like, "It's a real pleasure to meet you, Woodward." Like, I was just like creepy stalker guy because I didn't want to be too loud, and it kind of came out all wrong. So she kind of gave me this really polite nod and left, and I was like, "Yeah, that's probably the right reaction." So
Oh my
so
goodness.
if she's listening, I'm sorry if I came across as like super creepy, but I was a little starstruck and it didn't work out very well. And Moody's is great because I got to hang out with Dennis Leary and Jay Baruchel all day, and meeting Jay was great because we're both Montrealers, and I've known his sister for a few years, but I'd never met him. So I've heard lots about him, and we got to spend the day just joking around, and he's absolutely hilarious. So
So Dennis Leary's as funny offset as he is on set.
man, he would like I could tell that the name of the game with him was that he would just give everybody the business all the time, all the time. Yeah, that's how that set worked. It was just Leary would show up and he'd give everybody the business, and they'd shoot something, it would be amazing, and then he'd go back to the trailer, and that would be that.
Yeah, when I was in college in the early '90s, one of my roommates had a Dennis Leary comedy CD that he would play all the time, and there was this whole thing about anti-vegetarians, and sorry for anyone who's listening is a vegetarian, but he's talking about how he wants to eat meat. He wants to eat so much meat that we die, and then we throw the people on the fire and have more meat for the meat eaters. And it was so funny. But I mean, he was one of the funniest comedians of my younger generation. Um, that and Demolition Man talking about running around naked with a Playboy and a bowl of Jello. I mean, just some of the stuff he comes up with is absolutely hilarious. I would
super
love to share a beer with him.
super underrated Dennis Leary movie, The Ref. Do yourself a favor, watch that one.
I
He's
have to look
hilarious.
that one up. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, oh, it's awesome. He's a cat burglar, and his heist goes horrible.
Oh,
And
does it really?
him ensues.
Oh, well, before we wrap this up, I guess we should start getting the deets out for social media, how to keep in contact with you. How do we find out what you're doing, what you're up to?
Well, the easiest thing is I have my website, which is matthewkabwe.com. That's where everything is. I do have a Facebook page, Matthew Kabwe. I have to admit, I am a really lazy social media person. Like, I go and I'm like, oh, I'm on set, and then I look and the last entry was like 9 months ago, and I'm like, oh, I gotta get better.
Well, we definitely have a
So
lot of information on your website. That's how I was able to coordinate with your agent, Bridget, who was absolutely fantastic.
I love it.
When next time we talk to her, tell her thank you very much for being so diligent and working with us. She's great, and tell her I apologize if I butchered my French in one of my responses. I took French in high school back in
Yeah.
'93, dating myself horrifically, and there goes my cat. And I think I wrote "Merci beaucoup" or something like that, and I didn't hear any more French from her at that point. So I think she realized English is my primary language. So,
Oh, she's cool with that. She actually, before she came back to Canada to work as an agent, she was one of the dialect coaches on Band of Brothers Pacific. So yeah, so
Nice.
that's cool.
she's very used to working in both languages, and I agree with you. She's awesome in her own right, and I'm very happy and lucky to have an agent like her. So.
Oh yeah, she's phenomenal.
So, anything you want to
Um,
plug or last comments?
Well, I kind of just came out of a really busy period. Like I shot that film VFC, and before that, I got to do. So right when the lockdown hit, I was doing a play at the Centaur Theatre in Montreal. The play is called Mob, and it was the English language premiere of uh, a play that had premiered in French, and it was called La Meute in French. So we got to do it, and then the lockdown hit, and the run got cut short. And then we got nominated for a bunch of awards, and I won an award, and it was awesome. And then we got the opportunity to try and remount it. So we went into rehearsal in March of this year, but we had no idea whether or not we'd actually be able to do it, because still right now there's a curfew in Montreal where you're not allowed, unless you're essential worker, you're not allowed after 8 o'clock at night. So we had absolutely no idea whether or not we were even going to be able to do it. And then right before we would have opened, the government said, okay, we're extending the curfew to 9:30. And that lasted for about 2 weeks, and then they put it back down to 8 o'clock. But right in that 2 week period, we got to remount that play. So I did the play, and then I shot another video game, which I can't say anything about yet. And then shot the movie, and now I got a little moment to breathe, play a little Outriders.
Oh, we may have to call you back on the show once we figure out what this next thing you're doing is there.
Yeah. Well, AAA games are like movies, right? You do them, and then it takes a little while for them to get the ball rolling and get them out. So it'll be a while, but I had a great time on the show, man. Anytime you guys wanna talk, you just let me know. This is fun. Talking about geek stuff is my everyday. So.
Yeah, actually, I think I saw your accepting speech for that award. It aired about 4 months ago.
Yeah.
And that's actually where I was trying to learn how to pronounce your name, which clearly I butchered it, and I apologize for that.
Okay.
But do we know when this game's going to be launching? Do you have any idea? Is it 2022, 2023?
I don't even know myself. So
okay.
So I can't say.
Can you say is it in the shooter realm? Is it in the role playing realm? Yeah, I know he's going to kill me.
Yeah.
But
it's in the I have an ironclad NDA with a powerful company, so it's in that realm.
It's in the video game realm.
All right, Dicejunkies fans, I tried. I honestly tried. But if it's a AAA game, I know we'll be talking about it, because we do everything geek culture wise here on the show, and. And if you want to come back on, we will be more than happy to have you to discuss it once it's actually released. So we'll keep an eye out for it, for sure.
Yeah, being a card-carrying geek, you could even just come on our regular podcast. I'm fine with that. If you ever get bored, just let us know.
Yeah, man. Anytime you want to talk, like, I watched Star Wars for the first time when I was 2 in the theater. Played my first game of Dungeons and Dragons when I was 7. I've been at the geek thing for a long time. I to this day I run a BattleTech campaign. Like,
oh, nice.
I am all things geek.
Now you're talking my language when it comes to mechas. I can't get my friends to play mecha games, but I still have my BattleTech G1 stuff. A lot of the mechs, the books with the hidden mechs in it, I have all those boxed up. So, now you're talking my language.
Oh yeah, I have books like from the early 80s that are just they're being held together with hope. I think I played my first game of BattleTech in 1987.
All right.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you guys want to talk about anything geek, Star Wars, Star Trek, BattleTech, Robotech, anything, I'm in.
Oh, I love Matthew already. We're just like right here. Yeah, because Zeno and Q, they're more anime and getting into that kind of stuff. I'm like, no, man, give me sci-fi, give me Star Wars. I will do Star Trek. I love more of the original series and the Next Generation is acceptable too, but some of the newer stuff I just couldn't get into. It just wasn't my cup of tea. But BattleTech, oh my gosh, I haven't heard anybody actually reference BattleTech since I was in high school.
Look,
that's cool.
I'm into sci-fi too. I'm just in a different sci-fi than you. You're the Star Wars and Star Trek. I'm Red Dwarf and Blank 7.
Oh, I can't tell you how many times people have called me Lister.
Oh,
Like, oh yeah.
Smack off. Yeah.
Best line, one of the best lines in the history of science fiction comes from Red Dwarf. It was where it's the polymorph episode where Rimmer just goes, hey, I think we're losing track of the most important thing, which is, what are we going to name ourselves? My vote is for the Coalition for the Liberation of Intelligent Terrifying Organisms and their Rehabilitation into Society. The only drawback is that the abbreviation is clitoris.
Oh, okay. Now, see, now I'm good with you, man. You just,
I'm old school Red Dwarf.
Oh, yeah. Oh no, I'm going to chop that up and I'm going to add it to the end of one of my gaming videos. Probably my next Outriders video, because I have this thing that I didn't realize Mark was recording at the time. I had my beard down to here and my best Marcus Phoenix impersonation of "They fucked my tomatoes up," and that's the end of our gaming videos. I'm gonna add your clitoris comment onto the end of one of my gaming videos.
Here, hold on,
awesome.
I got the sound.
They fucked my tomatoes up.
Yeah, there it is.
Awesome.
Well, I do want to thank Matt very much for your time. You've been overly gracious with your time today. We definitely thank you very much for Abraham Zahedi, and the Star Wars talk was is hit me right here in the feelers, man. I appreciate it.
Red Dwarf talk hurt me, man.
And,
I'm like, oh.
We hope to be able to get you back on the show once we find out about your new voice projects for your next game coming up. We look forward to seeing that as well.
Thanks. I mean, appreciate the invitation, and being on the show was great. You guys were great. It's a great conversation, and you know, it's so wonderful to be able to work on a project like this and then have it get released and have such an amazing reception, and then be able to talk about it. I mean, it's all just so wondrous for me personally. So thanks for being a part of it, and I'll talk to you next time, man.